The current dominant spear meta is about to come to an end as soon as tier 2 drops. You may have been noticing those top tryhard guilds have been stacking a meta of like 2 healers, 2 tanks, and 2 spear damage dealers. That's right, so many guilds have been switching over to spear users as their main damage dealers and absolutely just dominating in any group PvP setting. And there's a big reason behind this, and that's due to the fact tier 1 does not exactly have the best gear options to counter spear. If you jump to the Korean server, you will barely see anybody running with spear. If you ask anybody here, they'll tell you that spear is actually kind of underwhelming. So in this video, let's cover why, and potentially you might want to prepare to reroll. So as you may be aware, spear heavily relies on Javelin Inferno with the combination of Thunder Spirit and Lightning Infusion. These 3 things allow for some insane multi-target damage output. However, there's a catch. You have to hit your primary target. You have to actually deal damage to them. If that set attack misses, you deal no damage to anybody. It then is not considered a multi-target attack, versus some other abilities which you're going to cast and are just going to hit everybody within said area. Staff is particularly good at that, and Longbow with, say, its flash waves. It doesn't matter what the primary target is, if you hit or miss, you're still dealing damage in that area, versus Spear. If I miss that one attack on this target, I deal 0 damage with that entire ability. Yes, I've got 5 spears I can throw, so you have a bit of a higher chance, but if you consider the amount of damage one spear does, it's generally not enough to make much of a dent. You really need to be throwing like 3, 4 in order to actually kill a group of enemies. But yes, in tier 1, that's not a big deal. You can throw in Enforcer, get an extra 410 free hit chance. You can stack a build that has hit chance, easily getting to say 1300. And then with the extra Enforcer buff, that's 1700. You can take that further with some extra hit chance gear, but in this example, we're also looking at stacking some melee evasion. And this is your hard counter. Again, like we said, if you miss that Javelin Inferno on your primary target, you deal no damage with the entire attack. The bounces do not happen. So as soon as you start running into melee evasion targets, you will struggle. And that's why you just stack a bunch of hit chance and you can get pretty close to your enemy's melee evasion. And they'll usually, at best, only be 500 points different to you. And that equates to about a 33% chance for them to actually evade your attacks for you to miss. Which is still bad, and you will experience when you run into those top guilds who have a lot of people stacking melee evasion, that spear does seem to fall off. And the thing with tier 1 right now is if you do want to stack melee evasion like this build, you sacrifice quite a lot. I can now only say stack 2000 ranged evasion, because we're going to consider you can get this passive here with nearly 700 and another passive here with over 400. So you've got a respectable amount of ranged evasion that will work most of the time, but your magic evasion falls off and thus your counter becomes a staff user. And so they may be having a good time. But in tier 1, you're still super dominant because people can't stack really enough melee evasion to properly counter you. But then we have tier 2 with all the new gear that comes with it. I've went over most of it in my previous videos, and what this change brings is a lot more build diversity and the ability to actually stack an absolute ton of evasion. Hit chance is going to be around 2000. If you stack some more hit chance specific items, you can probably get that to 2500. But evasion now becomes over 3000. Just simply melee evasion here is over 3000 already. And then ranged and magic evasion is 2600, which again, you can go and increase with your simple passives like Shadow Walker and Nimble Steps, and they'll also be well over 3,000. So what this means is you will find a lot more people stacking melee evasion, not just to counter spear, but in general, because they can without sacrificing so much. And so you're going to be running into a lot more targets that you're just going to miss on. And the stat point difference is now going to become like 1,000 versus your hit chance. You can simply look at this table, and in T1 about now, you have 500 difference usually if you're stacking enough hit versus somebody who's stacked like as much melee evasion as they can. But when tier 2 comes around, you're going to end up with about 1,000 point difference. And now you're going to be missing your attacks half of the time. This is absolutely going to destroy the spear meta. As soon as, again, you can't land those javelins on your primary target, you don't get any of the bounces, and you don't deal any damage. Your entire ability is just completely mitigated. A lot of other multi-target damage abilities do not suffer from this because they are truly multi-target. Doesn't matter, they're going to hit everybody within their designated area. But Spear has that special case where you have to have super good targeting. You have to be attacking the right person who does not have melee evasion in order to actually deal any damage. In tier 1, not such a big deal because you can stack enough hit chance to counter, but when tier 2 comes out, you can't feasibly do so. Now, if you're like a greatsword user, you can stack hit chance even more just by having like your passives and reliably have over a 400 free extra hit chance. And you can get upwards of 2,500, pushing that nearly to 3,000. But Spear with Dagger doesn't really have that luxury. Again, this is just an example, just looking at say Blue's build here with Spear Dagger. I made some tweaks of my own and you can see the amount of evasions you're getting. I'm going to have to do my own theory crafting on builds, but yes, again, you can ask anybody on Korea. And Spear really has a hit chance problem here. We're going to experience that too, undoubtedly, and you're going to find as soon as people realize they can stack more evasion without sacrificing too much, then you're just going to be completely hard countered as a Spear user. Again, like over a 50% chance to miss on your attacks is going to be really brutal for Spear. Now don't get me wrong, Spear is still going to be super good for mob clearing. That multi-target damage is absolutely insane in open world dungeons, and you can just like solo all of them. You can easily get past their evasion and just deal all that multi-target damage. And if you run into a bunch of noobs who haven't stacked, say, melee evasion, then you'll also have no problem at absolutely destroying them. So should you consider re-rolling? Well, that's going to be up to you. And this video is just a warning that Spear is not nearly going to perform as well in tier 2. Whether you want to switch over to Dagger Crossbow or Dagger Greatsword, that's going to be your decision. But ultimately, Dagger Spear is kind of like a worse version than Dagger Greatsword. Greatsword can at least always secure a kill, jumping on somebody and just nuking them. Spear can do similar things. You've seen me mess around with in Arena, but it just lacks that raw damage output against a single opponent that Greatsword has, or even Crossbow Dagger has. And you will find Crossbow Dagger is going to kind of be insane in tier 2, but only if you have this arch boss weapon. That's definitely something you really need to keep in mind. Without this, you're not really going to be spinning on people. You're going to be just picking off targets with your single target attacks and dashing around the battlefield. It will be interesting to see what different builds people can create, and we still have yet to confirm exactly what tier 2 gear will be available at launch on March the 6th when we get this. There will undoubtedly be milestones which we're going to have to progress through to unlock new content, getting like the new arch bosses, field bosses, which all unlocks new content and new gear. similar to what we had when the game launched for us. We had milestones for nearly 2 months, which eventually unlocked everything, ending in the siege. But that's pretty much it for now. Those of you who detest the current spear meta, I'm sure you might be delighted. But those of you who are enjoying spear a lot, enjoy it while it lasts. Perhaps you can figure out a way that you can make it work good in tier 2, but it appears the Koreans haven't really. But you never know, there's an absolute ton of build diversity. I just again think spear is going to suffer from hit chance and your enemies having a much easier time to actually stack evasion versus you. So thanks all for watching and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.